Hey, we're talking about X-Men 97. Up next on Geek Out SA.
Do not attempt to adjust your YouTube video. We control the stream.
And welcome back to Geek Out SA. It's Friday and we're having fun.
It's Friday and I messed up. So we did have people watching, but maybe they clicked on the other link. So I don't know if you need to put up a new link in places.
I've
for the
already
new
put
stream.
up a new link in places.
Okay. Well, we lost some people because they probably thought we were done after a minute. We usually have technical difficulties. This time was not a technical difficulty. It was a Colleen difficulty. So I have moved the keyboard away so I cannot potentially touch it.
I had everything set up for her this time.
It was beautiful.
Everything.
I was so ready. It was great. And then I leaned over to touch the stream deck and I touched the keyboard and it ended the whole stream.
Yeah.
So, rewind. It's time to start again. So what are we talking about, Vince?
So we're talking about X-Men 97.
What about it? Now we're like totally thrown off. So when we started the last episode, I was telling a nice little anecdote about X-Men 97 because Vincent and I actually didn't know that X-Men 97 was a thing.
Right.
And then I told Vince, we're going to watch X-Men 97. And he's like, okay, I've already seen that. In the 90s. And I was like, yeah, me too. I don't get it. So here's the little backstory.
Because I had no idea that this was a new thing, and it's a brand new continuation of the 97 animation series.
Right, and they're only releasing it weekly. So we're only 5 episodes in.
Yeah.
I think, which is great because we get to keep going until May.
Right.
So, but neither of us know what this thing is, right? So here's how it all started. Everybody knows that Vincent and I are geeks, nerds, whatever you want to call it. So I'm at a field trip with my colleagues, and some of them are also geeks, nerds, whatever you want to call us. And so one of them, Quentin, is talking to me, and Quentin says, have you checked out the new X-Men 97? Because we're talking about other geek stuff, and he brings that up. And so I was like, I haven't seen it in a while. And he gives me this weird look, like, what do you mean you haven't seen it in a while? And I didn't know why he gave me the weird look, but I was like, he's giving me a weird look. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I haven't seen it. Like, have I not seen X-Men? Because I thought I had seen X-Men.
Well, I didn't even know that this was a thing that was coming.
No, me neither. I hadn't even heard about it. So then when he said it, then I Googled it later when he wasn't around to see me. And I was like, oh my God, it's like a thing. It's a thing on Disney. So I was like, well, I'm going to watch it. I just thought it was like a redo, like updated animation of
like remastered.
the old, remastered of the old one. So I was like, I guess we're going to get the old one, but it's just going to be remastered so that we have it in like a
1080p.
like a more modern animation.
Yeah.
Right. And so it starts and we're watching it and it's like, well, it's kind of the same, but it's not. I mean, it's been since the 90s, so it's been almost 30 years since we've seen the original. So at first when I saw it, I was like, well, it's not necessarily a remastering. It's new stuff. I don't know. I was like kind of thrown at first. And when we first watched it, I was like, what am I watching? My brain kind of like glitched. It was like, what's going on? I wasn't quite sure what was happening.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until we got like a couple of episodes in that I realized, so it's new storylines, but in a new updated style of the old style. Which is kind of what threw me off, because they even have like the spinning characters at the beginning. Like the intro is very similar. Like, it's very similar.
Now, we have it side by side if we want to go ahead and show that.
Yeah, I do. Here we go.
Previously on X-Men.
So, yeah.
So yeah, it's really close to what it was. It's different. It's definitely different. And I think it's a little bit different because they change it on the second episode, and that's the one that I'm showing now. Because that's the one from the second episode. The one in the background, the large one, is what they're showing now.
Is X-Men 97.
But the first one, they don't show it with Magneto in there.
The one from the actual 90s.
No, they don't show him with Magneto on the first episode.
Oh, in the intro of the first episode of X-Men 97, they didn't have Magneto?
No. It wasn't until the second episode where we find out why.
Right, because we find out that in X-Men 97, Charles is gone.
Right.
And so everybody assumed that Charles was going to leave the X-Men to Scott, but he actually ends up leaving them to Magneto.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I remember this distinctly. I remember that the name of the X-Men episode is My X-Men to Me. Like, he's calling, my X-Men come to me or whatever. And Magneto says that in the episode, and you're like, oh, it's super cringe. Like, to hear Magneto be in charge of the X-Men.
Right.
It kind of is very jarring, because you're so used to him being, that other side.
Right.
And now he's the leader. It's weird.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Sorry, I'm trying not to yell.
I think we're gonna probably see a split again. Eventually.
I think eventually we would have to, because that's kind of the whole dynamic of X-Men.
I don't think Magneto can change ultimately who he is, and he seems to be trying to do that through everything that we've seen so far.
Well, but he tries to do that throughout his character arc. Even when you see him in the live action movies, he's always trying throughout his character arc,
But not being in charge of the X-Men.
Not being in charge of the X-Men.
That's completely different.
I haven't read a lot of the comics. Like, I read some of the storyline back in the 80s, 90s. With Wolverine and Jubilee.
Mm-hmm.
When Jubilee had a crush on Wolverine, like, I read that storyline. But I wasn't as fascinated with Magneto, so I didn't really follow his storyline so much. CG Anime Fan says, X-Men is my favorite Marvel franchise, so I hope that Disney uses them well. I think so far...
I think they are showing them well. A lot of people, because we've done some research on Reddit and stuff, and people have a problem with the animation, but the animation is meant to look like it did in '97, but updated to where it's a lot clearer now. The colors are amazing.
Yeah, and I don't know why people are saying that the animation from the new one, from the Marvel 97, is real jerky and jarring. I don't get that from the animation. I mean, they're saying that they have no like facial expressions, and they are like they don't have enough frame rate on it. I don't know if they see something that I don't see. Did you notice anything like that?
Yes. Yeah, it is like that, but it's done like that for a reason. It's done like that to mimic the old cartoon.
And I guess that's why I don't notice it, because for me...
Right. It's just a continuation of what we've seen before.
Excuse me, sorry.
It's a little bit smoother. It's a little bit smoother. Because you're not having to watch it through a cathode ray tube TV.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I thought that was the whole point of it. It's why it's called X-Men 97, is it is supposed to be in that style. It is supposed to be like that show. So that's what they're giving us. It's a different studio than who did it the original time.
Right.
So originally it was a group of animators that worked on it, and now it's a studio that probably has more computer generated animation and things like that. CG Anime says the animation looks different, so it takes some getting used to. Like, tell me how you think it looks different, because to me, I didn't feel
it's
like
in
it
the
really
same
looked.
style. It's definitely in the same style.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looked. I mean, just like you saw on what we
But
queued
you
up,
look,
it looks
but
pretty dang close.
If you look at the old ones are choppier than the new ones.
And, you know, kind of gritty and grainy and like 1990s style. So it feels to me like they took that 1990s style, and it very much looks a lot like the animation to me.
Right.
And then they just cleaned it up. So
yeah.
That was what I thought they were going to do, is just take the original series.
But
and
like
just...
X-Men 97 is a large, or the X-Men in the 90s was a step above what Super Friends was, because if you look at Super Friends, that was, I mean, what we thought that was great animation when we were watching it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It wasn't at all great animation until we saw the X-Men, and we thought that was great. That was even better. And then now we see this, and this is just a little step up.
Yeah, CG Anime says the original series had traditional hand-drawn animation, which we know, while the new series looks more like modern flash animation, in their opinion. Yeah, and I think it is. I mean, I think that's the whole point, is to use the modern techniques that we have, right? Because we've come a long way.
Well, because it makes it easier to make the shows, and it's cheaper.
Well, yeah, right?
Yeah, it's cheaper to do it that way.
And so I think, yeah, it's more modern. They're using more of that. But I felt like they're still very true to that style. Like, we didn't get, I guess, like, I think about the style of like Clone Wars, Bad Batch. That's like a different styling than the 90s X-Men. Or you think about even like what you see in Airbender or something.
That's what people were expecting to see, I believe, I guess.
Oh, maybe.
Is to see that.
CG Anime says, for what it's worth, the animation in Super Friends got a lot better in the last season, which was the Superpowers Galactic Guardians season.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully it gets better. That's kind of the whole point of it, is to go with the new modern technologies and the new modern ways of hand drawing things, or putting them together, and each time get better.
This was geared for us 90s kids.
Right, definitely. And because when this came out, we were in our early 20s.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, even before that, I think it
came out in 1992. That was when you graduated, so you were 18. I think it was 92 to 97.
It was 92 to 97, yeah.
Yeah, so my oldest child was born in 1992. I was 19.
So I was my senior in high school.
You were 18, yeah. So still young enough that we're watching cartoons.
Right.
Because that's about the time when the first kind of gritty rendition of the Ninja Turtles came out and everything. So we're still watching. I really remember
because
the
this was a
X-Men.
step up because we were watching like G.I. Joe and Thundercats before this.
Which to me, I guess because I grew up with those, so even to me, those animations were spectacular.
Yeah.
You know, now that I
But
see
when you go back now and watch them, you're just like, what? I can't believe this.
CG Anime says, I grew up more with X-Men Evolution, but I did watch the original series. VH tapes. Nice.
Yeah.
VH tapes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we watched it like actually on TV.
Yeah.
There was no, like we actually watched it on TV. I didn't actually watch much of X-Men Evolution. It was this original one. But some of the things that I remember from the original one, some of the comedic stuff is missing from the new one. And maybe they're going to bring it once they get us kind of in there.
But you know the weird thing about it is when they started with the X-Men movies, I didn't go back and see the X-Men series and see what did they try to keep, because what they brought over was Rogue, but Rogue was in the Jubilee, was kind of in the Jubilee
like that character arc, right? Like I'm a kid and I'm trying.
in the animated series from the 90s.
Yeah.
And they're just, well, why are they doing that? Because Rogue was already an adult.
She's a younger adult, but she's still an adult in the animated series. And even from what I remember in the comics, she's an adult. And Rogue is, I mean, Jubilee is a kid. That's what I remember from her, like having a crush on Wolverine. And Wolverine's like, get away from me, kid, you know. I love Jean. I'm very angsty about Jean, you know. Which finally in this 5th episode, like they kind of have the undertone of it in the other episodes, and you know, like if you know that Logan has this thing for Jean. Yeah. And in the 5th episode, they kind of bring that more to the forefront. Because back in the 90s cartoon, it was almost the Wolverine cartoon for a while.
Yeah.
It was Wolverine.
Because that was the toys that were selling.
Well, and he's popular. I don't know why,
who,
but
who won Cyclops? Because he
like
doesn't have anything.
He's like
cool.
the Raphael. Well, but Wolverine is like the Raphael of the Ninja Turtles. He has all of this attitude. He has all this rage and anger. He just wants to get out there and slash and crash and destroy everything, you know. So I don't know why people like those characters. I mean, I kind of do. As an adult, I kind of like those characters because you want to like rage against the world, like be out there. But then
rage against the machine.
And CG Anime says, I know that it's still Cal Dodd doing Wolverine's voice, but something sounds off in 97.
Well, I mean,
think
they're
it's
older.
Close. They're older.
It's close. They're older.
They're older, and obviously some of the voice actors are different. Some of them are new. You had to expect that not all of them were going to come back.
Switched to other characters.
Yeah, some of them switched over and became somebody else, or they got younger actors to become this.
Like they had a new person playing Gambit.
Yes, they have a new person playing Gambit. Wolverine is so popular that they made a cartoon called Wolverine and the X-Men. Yeah. I mean, Wolverine has always been it, you know. People have always liked him, wanted to be like him. They have live action movies about him. They have cartoons about him.
I mean, all the comics did tons better.
Yeah.
His own comics.
You know, and I think Cyclops gets to be the boring leader guy, right?
Yeah.
He is just what he is. I mean, it's not like his power is not great. One of the things that I was always sad about, though, is we see Gambit a lot in the cartoon. We see him in the new iteration, but we don't see him in the live action. We see him one time in the live action.
One time,
and it wasn't great.
No.
And I think that's why they dropped him forever, is because Gambit is another one that people kind of gravitate towards and kind of really
you have to
like.
do that character right.
You
You
have
can't
to
just
do him
bring somebody in and then, oh, well, this is Gambit. Well, give him some exploding cards.
Yeah, no.
No, that doesn't work that way.
But whoever's voicing, and I forgot the name of the person who's voicing Gambit now. It's not the same voice actor that voiced him in the 90s. But I personally think that whoever is voicing Gambit now is pretty on spot and has it down pretty well.
He does, and the old cast thinks he does too.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's AJ Lacascio.
I don't know. I'm sure he
Something
has
like that.
other titles under his belt and he's done other things. Absolutely not. CG animated fan. No. Anime fan. CG anime fan. No, no, no. No, 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 no. He says they almost made a Channing, or he or she, they say, they almost made a Channing Tatum Gambit film. Absolutely no. Absolutely no. I love Channing Tatum. He is funny. He's goofy.
Mm-hmm.
He's, Mr. Rico Suave and his, Magic Mike stuff. That's great. As Gambit? Absolutely
He's not a Gambit, no.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't know who is. I need to think on it a little bit more. But Channing Tatum is a no. It's a hard pass for me. But I do think that the voice actor that they have nowadays...
You know who could probably do when he was younger, though? Matthew McConaughey.
Maybe.
A younger Matthew McConaughey could have played that part if he got the Cajun accent down.
That's what you have to do, though, is you've got to get...
You got to get that Cajun accent down.
the accent and the attitude. You have to have that
And
combination.
this new guy got it.
Yeah, he's got it. I think he's got it.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that I'm missing from the new one is there was so much funny tension between Wolverine and Gambit, which Wolverine and Cyclops, their tension is different, obviously, because of Jean. But Wolverine is so angsty and angry and everything, and so he doesn't like Gambit because Gambit's kind of flippant and he's kind of like prankster and stuff.
But they, in the old ones, they would Wolverine kind of like accepts him after a while because Gambit keeps saving him.
Yeah, yeah. But it's so funny, and you were telling me this earlier that maybe they're not allowed to do it anymore, but I always thought it was funny, and we used to use it a lot when we played the role-playing game, is Wolverine calls Gambit Gumbo.
Gumbo. He doesn't call him Gumbo in
He doesn't call him Gumbo at all.
X-Men 97, no.
And I kept
not at all.
missing it.
And I
I
would just
was
call him Gumbo.
like, just do it. It's funny. It's funny. Like, it's kind of an insult, but...
I don't know if they're saying that because they don't want to get canceled or something like that, but that was... I thought that was just like... It was just like a term of endearment.
Yeah, it does seem like kind of like you agitate me, but you're like my little brother kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I kind of missed that, him calling him that in this new one. And then I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but I will say that if you love Gambit, be very wary of the newest episode. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to ruin it. But I will say that I was like sobbing. I was in tears at this new episode. And I had fallen asleep when we watched it originally. And Vince was like, oh, you've really got to watch this episode. Didn't said it to me, but it didn't click in my head how jarring it was going to be until I actually watched it. It woke me up when he said what happened. But yeah, it was very jarring for me. So just be aware of episode
we're also
5.
talking about some of the weird things that happened in there that kind of icked us out. Was you were talking about
my God.
The relationship between Rogue and Magneto.
Yeah, so for me, if you want to get canceled, I feel like that's something you could get canceled over. It feels very grooming. Like her mom takes her to this man who's going to help her. He takes her in to teach her about her powers and then seduces her and stuff. And he's older and she's younger. It just gave me the ick. I got the ick. And then they're at the ball together and they're dancing and kissing. And I was just like, oh, it's so gross. It was just really awful.
It makes sense why she would do it, though. It doesn't make it. It's not off that she would want to do something like that because he's the only one that is able to touch her.
No, right. I get that because of her powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get that her powers cause it so that she can't have that intimate relationship, and they even do that in the live action, right? So you see that in the live action because of her powers. She has all of this angst, and you see it in the 1990s cartoon as well, because she actually goes at one point to try to get her powers taken away from her so that she can just live a normal life and touch somebody that she loves, right? And so I get it, but it was still icky. This says that YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Should
That's
I just
fine.
ignore that? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not a techie. Sometimes I have to ask these questions. I just thought the way they went around
So CG anime fans said Magneto's around the same age as
Xavier.
Xavier, and I assume that Rogue's much younger than that.
She is much younger than that.
She's much younger than that.
She's like an older teen when her mom takes her to get groomed by Magneto. I don't know.
Well, now how old would she be, though?
Huh?
Now how old would she be?
She's closer to Gambit's age, so they're in their late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
They're probably in their late 20s because I think Cyclops and Jean are like in their early 30s. So, so Gambit and Rogue are like 27, 28, something like that. Whereas Magneto and Xavier are like our age. They're like 50.
Yeah.
You know, so it just gave me a little ick. I was not really happy with it. I was like, what? Why are we doing this? It's super gross. I don't know. It was the only one that I just really didn't. It was the only aspect of it that I really didn't like. If you've seen it before, they tie in the old, like Rogue wanting to get rid of her powers that we see in the original 90s cartoon. And then in this reimagined version, it's Jean who wants to get rid of her so that she doesn't have to go through, but it's actually the Jean clone, but that's a whole other thing. And then, but she's talking to Storm, and Storm is like, yeah, I can kind of see why people would want that, you know, so that they don't have to go through all this stuff that we're having to go through. And then, sorry if I'm ruining this for you, but then Storm actually does lose her powers.
Right.
And I thought they played that really well too. Like, people are saying that this animation doesn't emote, but I felt like when she lost her powers, she very much did emote, and you feel it like in your heart, like you feel for her, because here's Storm, and she's so powerful, and she's got such a magnetic presence, right? And you just, you know, want to gravitate towards her, and you're in awe of her. And even one of the characters that's talking to her tells her that she's practically a goddess, you know.
Yeah.
And so to see her lose her powers, and she even cries that she can't feel the wind anymore or anything, like,
Yeah.
I felt like they did a really good job with the characters emoting. Did you feel like that was a problem?
But we're used to the animation. I don't think the new people that are watching are used to the animation.
I don't know. And maybe it's because I am into the story, but even like when we see Genosha, but Genosha is like supposed to be Switzerland-esque, right? And so all the mutants are there supposedly, like, you know, enjoying their lives and stuff. And we see all these cute little mutants and mutant kids and stuff, and they're playing and everything. I mean, to me, I thought they did really well with the facial expressions and showing like the joy and the anger and the hurt and the angst. And is Scott a little flat? Yeah, Scott's a little flat, but
Scott's always
inherently
been
flat. Yeah. Scott's
But just like Leonardo of the Ninja Turtles, he's flat.
Yeah, and exactly, and that's that leadership role. You are kind of like, you're the one who's in charge, right?
Yeah.
You're the one who bears the weight. You're the one who feels it the most if something happens to the team. So yeah, you're kind of flat. You're kind of, because you've always got to keep yourself in check because you're so
The only
worried.
one that kind of broke that mold was Optimus Prime.
That's my boyfriend. Don't talk about my boyfriend. I love Optimus. There's so many iterations of him. He's fantastic. So we won't even get into the whole Optimus conversation right now. But yeah, I mean, I thought they emoted really well. And if you see episode 5, which I don't want to ruin for you, talk about emoting. Like,
Yeah.
there's some serious emoting from Magneto, from Rogue, from Gambit. Like, very much so. So I'm excited to continue to watch it. I don't see the things that other people are seeing in it. I'm actually very fascinated with it, very connected to it. I think that they did a really good job making it like the
The
original.
original.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and that was completely the point. It was geared towards us. It really was.
Well, that's why it's called X-Men 97. It means from 1997. That's what the 97 stands for, people, just in case you weren't aware. So one of the things, I keep going back to this newest episode because that's what's in my head because we've watched it most recently. But the other reason that it's in my head is when they go to Genosha, they get to see Nightcrawler.
Yeah. That was cool.
Nightcrawler is... I struggle between, is Nightcrawler my favorite or is Iceman my favorite? Nightcrawler, Iceman, Nightcrawler, Iceman, Nightcrawler, Iceman. They're like right there neck and neck. So I never can tell which one I love. There is something about Nightcrawler, and they kind of tried to do him right in the live action. They were close-ish. But there's something very like boyish charm about Nightcrawler. That I think that they got in this new one.
Yeah.
You know, when he sees his friends and he's, taking him all over the place and zapping him around.
Which they didn't get in the movies.
Right. I mean, I think they kind of tried it in the movies, but I think that was harder.
He wasn't young enough in the movies.
Yeah, they didn't make him young enough in the movies. And they couldn't, it's hard to get his powers down.
Do we think that Spider-Man will show up? It's possible.
I'm assuming eventually, because that's a lot of where I remember Iceman from is in that connection to Spider-Man's universe. So I was assuming that was what they were going to try to do, because doesn't Disney now own much of Spider-Man, but not all of it? Because Sony still owns some.
Sony owns Spider-Man.
Owns all of it?
Yeah.
But I thought that they were in collaboration with Disney.
They are in collaboration with it, and they could be in collaboration with this.
Yeah.
If they wanted to be.
I would think that would be the way to go. Because that was another fun cartoon.
Yeah.
Was the Spider-Man cartoon. So I hope that that's something that we get, even
That's
if
like
it's
the
just...
only thing that Sony's getting right is Spider-Man. Because I'm worried about the Fantastic Four. Again.
CG Anime Fan says Nightcrawler was used well in X2, but in Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, he barely did anything. I can agree to that. Yeah. I can agree to that. I think I just missed the animated version of him. And so it's nice for me to see the animated version of him again. And then this brings a new storyline that I wasn't even aware of, that I actually did some research about because of something I heard them say in episode 5. So in the earlier episodes, you find out that Jean Grey has been cloned by Mr. Sinister, and her clone is the one who is pregnant by Cyclops.
Right.
Which actually does happen in the comics. She ends up saying her name is Madeline Pryor, maybe? And now I forgot what her name is. So they have a baby. His name is Nathan, right? And then he gets a technovirus, and so Bishop has to take him to the future so that he can get healed of this virus.
Right.
So you see this reporter, and she's asking Scott, like, hey, how's your baby? And Scott's like, what baby? Like, he's like, there's no baby, right? Because he's angry because of everything that's happened, and he found out he was with a clone, and that's not really his wife, but she kind of is, and they have a baby, but now they don't because he's gone. Like, he's angry. So you finally see Mr. Level-Headed, and he blows up. And he blows up on national TV.
Yeah.
You know? And so it was interesting to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And to see
For him
them
to lose his cool that way.
Yeah, to see them take Scott to a place where he loses his cool. And then, if you're paying attention, in episode 5, Cable shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And Cable tells Madeline, I'm sorry, Mom, before all of the destruction begins in Genosha. And I was like, shut up. No way. No freaking way. No way Cable is Jean's clone and Scott's son. I was like, that can't be right. Like, they just made that up, right? So then I went and did some deep dives because I've never really been that into Cable.
Not really into Cable, no.
And that's real from the comics. That's really a thing.
From Jean or from the Jean's clone?
From the clone.
So there was a Jean clone.
There is a Jean clone. Madeline Price, whatever. Madeline something. Mm-hmm. There is a Jean clone in the comics. Madeline whatever. She does have a baby by Scott. He is Cable. Crazy, right?
That is crazy.
Like, I saw it in the cartoon and I was like, oh, they're taking some, creative license here. They're not. It's a thing. Do your research. But I like stuff like that.
Right.
When we're watching these shows, because if you haven't read the comic, you might not know all the lore.
Right.
But then you're watching the show, and then it makes you go, how did that story arc really happen? And then you look it up, and sometimes you're like, okay. Well.
But it seems like they were pulling stuff from the movie as well.
Which stuff did you feel like you saw from the movies?
Well, just the whole arc that Charles is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Because he wasn't in the animated series. I don't think they killed him.
No, because he goes off and he's like, they think he dies.
Yeah.
And that was when we first see Colossus in the old one. We haven't seen Colossus yet in the new one. And we see Juggernaut.
Mm-hmm.
But they think in the old one that Charles is dead. But then they find out later he's not dead. That he was out doing like a reconnaissance type mission or whatever. So in the old one, in the old animated one, he's not dead. Mm-hmm. We see Cerebro and all the stuff that we've seen in the live action movies, we see in the original cartoon. So in this new one, we don't have Charles at all. So, and I don't know if it's going to be like, because I don't know. That was another thing that I meant to research and I didn't get a chance to. Is there a timeline in the comics where Charles is dead? Because I guess to me he's always been such an icon of the comics.
Right.
I don't remember him being dead. So I wonder if in this X-Men 97, is he dead?
Because they still show him in the...
Right, he's in the trailer.
He's in the trailer.
So is he dead? Or is the trailer just supposed to mimic the original one? Or is he going to come back?
Or is this the part where he dies and he's in another body? Like in the movie. Mm-hmm. And then he comes back with that body or whatever.
I mean, that's the nice thing about comics is when you die in the comic, You don't
Do
really
you
die.
really die?
You don't really die. It's not a thing. Comic books are kind of like the drawn soap operas, right?
Yeah.
Oh, did you die? No, it was a dream sequence. Nobody is dead.
Kinda not.
Kinda not. So I'm waiting to see them bring some of the other characters. Obviously, you have to see Mystique, right? She's got to be in there at some point. Really need to see Colossus.
Right.
Really need to see Juggernaut. Really need to see Sabretooth. And you were saying we really need to see a Deadpool because we're getting ready to have the Deadpool movie. And then
Yeah.
if we want to expand from that Deadpool.
You can see the link to
Right.
it. Yeah.
Because we saw in the last Deadpool movie we had Colossus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I forget.
That's the only one they get was Colossus.
I thought there was a couple of other characters in the Deadpool movie.
But they aren't real X-Men characters, I don't think. Teenage Negasonic,
Whatever
something or
that
other.
was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to do some research because I don't remember what that was. A CG anime fan says, as Hugo Strange said in Gotham, death is just a new beginning. Yeah.
Exactly.
For every comic ever. Well, I mean, and that's very 90s style, right? Is nothing dies. Like, nobody in G.I. Joe knows how to shoot anybody. It's not a thing. Like, you know. Even in, if you go back, because you can go on, so the X-Men 97 is on Disney, right? So you can go on Disney right now, and you can watch the old X-Men, the 90s X-Men.
And we started to.
Juggernaut is in Deadpool 2. That's what I thought. Okay, thank you, CG anime fan. I haven't watched that in a really long time, but I did think Juggernaut was in Deadpool 2, and he is. So you can watch the 90s, the original, on Disney, and then you can watch X-Men 97 on Disney. And so when we were watching the original, there's one of the episodes they meet these like the underground mutants, and then they think that they've killed Scott, and then Wolverine like goes to kill him even more, basically, and they're all, Wolverine, why? Because they know Wolverine hates Scott, but Wolverine has a really great sense of smell, and so he's like, that's not Scott, and so sure enough, the person like shape shifts back into who they are, and it's not Scott, so. You can't even die when you're dead because it's not even you. So, yeah.
So, yeah, no, that was X-Men 97. If you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and take a look at it. It's a lot of fun. It brought back a lot of memories that we had to start watching the old ones again. But yeah, that was it. But thanks for checking us out. I really appreciate it. If you haven't clicked on that subscribe button, please click on that subscribe button and click on the notification bell so the next time we go live, you'll know. But thanks for checking us out. I'm Vince.
And I'm Colleen.
Geek Out SA.